Good morning. I know nobody's here yet, but it's nice to be streaming on a scheduled day and running a little bit late. I had an errand to run this morning, and it ended up causing me to not get back to the house till a few minutes after 8, so I had to start a little later. Good morning, Vince. Oh, so I know I was absent from the scheduled streaming for a little while. Reason for that being is every Tuesday I was having to drive up to St. Louis instead of stream. So just having to take my father-in-law to his chemo appointments. Well, his chemo appointments got moved to Fridays, and now are no longer something I have to drive up to St. Louis to take care of. So somebody else will be handling that now. So I can go back to streaming and designing and stuff. I haven't 3D printed anything in a while. Last thing I 3D printed, which I still haven't mailed, is my piece for the community print for Mike. I need to get that to the mail. Probably do that today. His treatments are going very well. They said all the numbers are looking good. The cancer's not going to be the thing that kills him. So there's other problems, but he's 80. Yeah, his treatments are going well. Um, he's up and about and moving around fairly well, all things considered. Um, he doesn't need he no longer needs the walker that he needed. The cancer that he had was putting pressure on his spine, and he ended up needing a walker, and then he graduated from a walker to a cane, and now he's pretty much getting around without any of that. So he's doing better. So let's see. I haven't designed anything in a while. I haven't printed anything in a while. So this is going to be knocking the rust off today. I'm rusty at streaming and designing and printing. I'm rusty at it all. So hopefully it's like riding a bike, right? Isn't that that's the thing everybody says when you they say you don't forget how to do something. It's just like riding a bike. So my wife used those words on me the other day when I said, "Man, I haven't driven a manual transmission in so long. I wonder if I'd even remember how." And she's like, "No, you just like riding a bike. You just get in there and just drive it." You're probably right, but we haven't owned a car with a manual transmission since 2005. So I've had no reason to drive one. All right. Rhett, quit. He goes back to school tomorrow. Tomorrow is a half day of school. It's his first day back. Well, he had freshman orientation yesterday, so. Um, Good morning, Mr. Buttram. He's a freshman in high school. My baby is a freshman in high school. My baby, he's huge now, is a freshman in high school. No, yeah, it's back to school, which means back to me working late at night, and having to get up at 6 a.m. to take him to school. Oh wow, no, yeah, our summer breaks are short, but I think that's because they get, not only do they get, they get fall break, they get winter break, they get spring break. You get all those breaks during the year. You have to stretch the year out in order to get enough school days in. I was like, fall break? Who's ever heard of fall break? When I was in school, you had Christmas vacation and you had spring break, but that was all you got, you know. Alrighty, well, let's see. I guess since this is morning modeling, I should open up Blender and do something. I had a thought. Dangerous, I know. I had a thought about, and I've had this thought many times about a modular platform, but now I'm thinking of a better way to do it. And, well, I think it's a better way to do it. I could be wrong. I was thinking, since now I have axles that snap fit, about designing a kind of universal modifiable frame that has the spots to mount the axles, and then you're just printing out different tops that will snap fit onto that frame. I don't know if you guys have thoughts on that. But making like a ladder frame, like what you see in a like pickup truck frame. So make a ladder frame that has snap connection points for the axles, and then snap connection points on top to snap different bodies on, and maybe use the same sort of snap fit connectors in different spots of the frame. So you would have like a ladder frame that you would snap together the pieces that you want for the configuration of vehicle you want. So first you'd snap together the ladder frame that you're going to use as your base chassis, and then you'd snap on your axles, and then you'd snap on your different front end, your different passenger compartment, your different rear end. So you would have one frame, right, one frame, all the different tops. Right, yeah, exactly. That's what I was thinking, is it would be truly modular enough that the, like, say you take this, and if you were to build this on that, you would use the basic front ladder frame section, the basic middle frame section, and the basic rear section. But then you could turn around and do a rear frame section that's meant for to make a six-wheeler, so it'd be longer and have another axle connection point. And maybe even make multiple of the axle connection spots that just go on down the ladder in a set interval, so that you've got a ladder frame that you would just snap together however many lengths of it you need, and then you put the axle in whichever set of holes are necessary for that. Morning, Brian. So that's that might even be better. So a ladder frame that has multiple connection points at set intervals, and maybe I make those intervals so that they're set so that a standard size wheel clears to do multiple axles. This is getting complicated for me design wise, but is also getting extremely in my head flexible for what you could, the possibilities are, what you could build. That way every vehicle that I design would start with those ladder frame sections, and you'd print out however many of those ladder frame sections you needed for the vehicle you're making. So if you were making a pickup truck with a long bed and a dually, for instance, maybe you print, say this vehicle has 3 of those ladder frame sections. That long bed dually quad cab pickup would have 6 of those ladder frame sections. You print them out, you'd snap them together. Yeah, design status is complicated. It is. Yeah, using the snap connectors that I'm using now have changed everything, and they've opened up so many more possibilities. I've just got to figure out the best way to interlock the ladder frame sections, because I don't think these same type of snap connectors would work for that. But I would like them to still be snap fit. The wheels are turning. Just see smoke coming out of my ears. All right, well, let's open up Blender and take a look at what we could do. Because I started playing around with the idea, but I wasn't using a ladder frame. I was using a flat frame, and that might be better to do anyway, the flat frame, because then I wouldn't need, or maybe I could do different pieces so that you could use the flat frame sections on like a passenger compartment or a place that you needed a solid floor, and then you have ladder frame pieces that you could connect to the flat frame for pieces that don't need a flat floor. That would save you plastic and time. You gotta start working in 4 minutes. You got it down to the minute, buddy. Alright, so let's go to the screen share. So I started toying around with this the other day, and like I said, I started with a flat frame section. So let's duplicate that, move it along the X. And I'm still not used to the changes in the interface for Blender, because it used to be going to wireframe, all you did was hit Z. Now when you hit Z, it brings up this little window here, this little menu here, pie menu, and then you go over to wireframe. Hit Z, go back to solid. Z, you can go up to rendered, which I don't know what look dev is. See, some stuff I don't even know what it is. Look dev. Z, wireframe. Uh-oh. I'm missing the connectors in there. Why are the connectors missing? Okay. Anyhow, we'll deal with that in a minute. So, thinking about the ladder frame thing, we could and they moved everything around on Blender's interface. So now what used to be down here, I would go down here to switch between vertex select, edge select, or face select. But now it's up here. I imagine it's one of those things that I'll just get used to it. And when I get used to it, it won't be a problem anymore. But for right now, it's a pain in my rear end. And I've got to see if there's a setting somewhere, because right now every time you change view, when you come back, perspective is turned back on. I don't like that. Uh-oh. I have learned some new tricks watching some of the Blender gurus out there, including the Blender Guru. Like, I didn't know it was as easy to, like, sometimes I'll get into a situation where there's a edge that I don't need. Like, say I decide I don't need this edge loop here. Whoops, this one. I didn't know this, but I learned this watching somebody else's video. I can just hit X and dissolve edge, and it doesn't affect the model in any way other than to get rid of that edge, which that edge really isn't needed. So I can hold down Alt, select that, X, dissolve edge. It's gone. Without having to, in the past, before I knew that, I was going in and I would select the edge and I would delete it, and then I'd have to go back and recreate the faces. I'll show you the difference. If I would hit delete here and say delete edge, now you can see that it messed everything up, and I'd have to go back in and select that and hit F to create a face, and I would have to go back and fix my models that way. Now, no, I wish I'd known this a long time ago. Just X, dissolve edges, gone. Have a great day, Brian. Hope work goes well for you, my friend. So you can see where that would save a lot of time. So I'm going to actually yeah, actually you can. Let me go back into. Now, if you want just that one, that specific edge exactly where it was back, then you just have to undo. But dissolve edge. But putting in an edge loop is as easy as Control R. Which there's something in the topology which is messing that up. Hold on, let me fix that. What is in... Oh, I see what it is. Now this one's messed up because of the Boolean operator that cut those circles into because it's no longer a four-sided face. It's technically a five-sided face. And that's because these edges got created by the Boolean operator, because otherwise it would tear the circle instead of cut it in. It would be all tore up. And it's going to be the same thing here with this one because of this Boolean operator that connected that piece to that. Let me grab another piece over here. Now this one won't have that there. Alright, Control R creates a ring cut. And when you hit enter, then you can slide it around wherever you want. By default, when you hit Control R, it puts it in the middle between the two outside edge loops. And if you just hit enter twice, it's exactly in the center between this edge loop and this edge loop. So yeah, Boolean operators create all sorts of havoc in a model. You see what I mean? I'm back to having perspective turned on, then I gotta go over and hit 5 on the numpad key again to go back into isometric view. I don't know why it does that. Alright, so... And all this over here has changed too. So stuff that I used to know right where to go find it, now I gotta look for a second. Y, not the X. One thing you can do to kind of overcome this situation, like in this case, in this case it's all messed up. Okay, hold on. I'm not sure how I'm going to change that. Let me see if I can dissolve those points and if it messes up the model. Dissolve vertice. Yeah. See why it has to cut those in there? This is what it would do otherwise without those vertices. I said Boolean operators cause all sorts of problems. Anyway, that's a problem for later. Oh, and now hitting A used to select all, and then hitting A again used to deselect all. Well, now hitting A selects all, but you got to double tap A to deselect all. So A to select all, double tap A to deselect. You can see why when I installed Blender 2.8 on the new computer and started trying to use it. Well, I was like, I can't stream with this right now because I could barely use it again. It was almost like going back to being a new user on Blender. It was crazy. Stop the insanity. Alright, let's go back into face select mode. Select those two faces, extrude them out a little bit. A little thicker. Turn on clipping. There you go. Delete face. All right, so what I was thinking with ladder frame type stuff is I could have the solid floor type frame pieces like this, but you can see that's, solid plastic. That's going to be, quite a bit of printing time and material. But then I could also have ladder frame pieces that could go under, because there's no reason necessarily that like this back section here have a solid floor on it, other than if you wanted to turn the model over and it just looks solid and pretty. There's no reason for that to have a solid floor. There's no reason for the front really to have a solid floor. You only have to have the solid floor under the passenger compartment. So you could have options with your frame pieces where you could print a solid floor section or a ladder section. A ladder section would print quicker and use less plastic. Oh, it's a place where my brain is going right now. And then you could have a situation where, let's see, Shift D, X. Maybe not that. Oh, let's undo that. What I need to do is get whoops. Just eyeballing this real quick. So once I figure out how to connect, the best way to connect these together, you can see what I'm talking about, where you would have a modular frame piece where there was no reason to have a solid floor under this or a solid floor under that. If you're printing a vehicle like the Rep Ranger, you would print two ladder frame sections and a solid frame section, snap them together, snap the axles in, snap the body on top, done. And I might need to put these little snap ball connectors at all four corners. This is still in the brainstorming stages. And then you could actually use the body as the bridging piece to connect these together. But then, like we were talking about earlier, slide that back, Shift D on the X. It would be as simple then as that. You're making the four-door version, or you print out that, and you're making a crew cab truck. I don't know. I still need to think about the intervals of which the axle connectors would be and things like that. But you get the gist. It would be a truly modular vehicle building system. So you would just print out the parts you needed for your frame, and then all I'm designing is bodies. Because I've already got the frames, the axles, the wheels, the tires. I could have a whole array of those already made. So you're picking and choosing your axle height, your wheels and tires, and you print out however many frame pieces you need. And all that's modular and interchangeable. And then I'm just designing, every time I sit down to make a new design, I'm only designing a new body for the modular frame. Glad to be back, man. I'm glad I'm not driving to St. Louis today. Which, part of the reason that had to come to an end was not only for my sanity, but the fact that my son goes back to school tomorrow. Yeah, I hadn't had a day like completely off to just chillax in over a month. Because every week I was driving back to St. Louis on my days off. And the last 2 weeks that I did it, in order to try to salvage some semblance of a day off, I was making the drive up to St. Louis on Tuesday. I'd leave the house at 7:30 in the morning. I'd get up there at noon. I'd take him to his doctor's appointment. His doctor's appointments would conclude about 4:30, and then I would turn around and drive straight back to Tennessee. in order to try to salvage having a day off. Well, that Wednesday, sure I'd be home all day, but I was too wiped out from a long work week plus all the stuff I had to do on Tuesday. That Wednesday was a wash too. I wasn't getting anything done. Yeah, that's that's a thought too. Ryan is could do an X style frame support there. You would still save plastic. I don't know. It'd be something to test for sure. You would still save plastic over a solid piece and just print the solid ones where you needed them. And then I could have multiple different frame pieces for different situations. But the idea would be that as I built more and more stuff, eventually you would have, it's like, okay, well, this frame piece is needed for this axle is needed for this, but all that would already be done. So every time I start on a new design, I would just bring in the frame pieces and the axles and wheels and tires I'm going to use. I would just bring those in, and I would start with a base structure already built. And then all I'm designing is a new body to sit on top of it, a new interior to go inside of it, that sort of thing. Talking about being able to crank out new designs faster, and people that are printing the designs to be able to, if you wanted to, you could actually sit down and print out extras to have on hand when you're ready to build the next one. You're just going, okay, well, I've already got those frame parts printed. I have a whole box full of ladder frame parts, a whole box full of X frame parts, a whole box full of flat frame parts, and wheels and tires and axles. And it would just literally be like sitting down, and you'd have a little drawer full of parts, and you go, okay, I need this, I need 3 of these, I need 2 of these, I need that. Lay it on the table. All you're having to print that you don't already have printed and stocked up and ready is the new body. Right, exactly. Speaking of sweet new things from GM, y'all seen that mid-engine Corvette? They're already sold out. The 2020 Corvette Stingray is already sold out. They're not taking pre-orders on them anymore. Right, yeah. Like make anything's poly panels, but with military looking vehicles. Well, and that's the only way they would make them really rare if you think about it, because essentially you're buying a car that is pound for pound competition for a Ferrari or a Lamborghini for a tenth the price. 0 to 60 in under 3 seconds. Mid-engine exotic sports car for 60 grand. No, because of dealer markup. dealers are doubling the price on them because they know the demand is high enough, and they're pocketing the excess, which should be illegal. Yeah, dealers. It should be illegal for dealers to double the price on a car. I understand it's a supply and demand system of things, but a Chevrolet says a vehicle costs 60 grand. You can't tell me that you have 60,000 in destination fees and things like that to add to the price. No, they have 60,000, and I'm a greedy son of a that just wants to pocket more money. No, I don't want. I wouldn't want the $1,000 floor mats. I'll wait till WeatherTech came out with a stamped uh, rugged floor liner for it. Put in it. So yeah. Anyway, my thought is, if I do this, then I could, you know, not just people who print my vehicles, but I could keep on stock, in stock, just have my printers printing away frame pieces. Like if I don't have anything specific I need printed, I'll just print a whole plate full of frame pieces, and then I could keep them in drawers, labeled and organized with frame pieces and axles and wheels and tires of different assortments. And then whenever I'm going to beta test one of my new designs, I'm just printing the body. I've already got the frame printed. And anyone who likes my stuff and likes to do that could prepare themselves for the next design by already having frame pieces done and axles and wheels and tires done. And then you get to pick and choose to some extent, because it would be modular, like say in a pickup truck. The only thing that would be standard would be the front clip, because then you would have to choose, okay, do I want the standard body, which is one frame piece, the crew cab body, which is two frame pieces, or maybe an extended cab body, which is a special 1.5 length frame piece, short bed, long bed, dually, 6-wheel. And so that opens up all sorts of things where one design could be offered up in a way that with nearly limitless possibilities for someone to print it out. It's not just they're choosing what color they're going to print theirs. They're choosing mine that I want the lift kit axles and the big wheels and tires. I want the or I want the low profile low rider wheels and axles. I want, whatever the case may be, so that each person could kind of customize and pick and choose what parts they wanted to print, how they wanted to print it, and what color they wanted to print it. So it would be a total creation of their own. Kind of like those people who buy Lego kits, but then they don't assemble them according to the instructions. They put their own creations together. So what I would be doing is offering the base kits that here's the STLs to put together this base kit. Now you can take and instead decide to print this piece and this piece and this piece and put it together this way, and now it's something totally different. Something custom to you. So that's the idea I've been kicking around for a while. But now these snap connectors have really given me the opportunity to possibly realize that. Right, exactly. And I don't know how well these. I haven't tried. I don't know how well these snap connectors deal with being taken back apart. If somebody wanted to blow it back apart and reassemble it in a different means, but yeah, creator sets for that now. But back in the day, good morning, Don. Yeah, it's probably just as easy to just print another one than it would be to try to pull it apart without breaking it. So that's where I'm at with this idea, and it's going to take some engineering and design work to get there. But these snap connectors have been a game changer from that aspect. Because say we've got, this axle, well, now for me to make a lift kit axle, would be as simple as, I missed a vertice somewhere or grabbed one I wasn't supposed to. But just, you get the idea. It would be as simple as pulling that down because you lowered the point where the wheels mount and now you've raised the suspension. So then that would allow me to standardize some things, like standardize axle diameters and the inner wheel hubs and things like that. I would standardize that, but then, I could go with different wheel and tire sizes based upon a model. But then we would have standardized lengths on the frame pieces, which I need to figure out what that scale needs to be. Where, I don't know, maybe each standard frame piece is 4 inches. So you'd have you'd have 1x frames, which are 4 inches. You'd have 1.5 frames, which are 6 inches. You'd have 2x frames, which are 8 inches. And all those things would be standardized, and I could just start. I would save myself a file that has all those parts sitting off to the side. And all I'm doing is selecting it, hitting Shift D to copy it, dragging it over, and slap that all together, and then start building a body on top of it. And then I could find a way to standardize a track kit, for instance. Maybe not quite this scale. This is huge. But standardize a track kit, and then you're putting together a Rep Ranger with a half track back end. Or, a 6-wheel Rep Ranger, or a lifted Rep Ranger, or a, slammed Rep Ranger, or, whatever. you would be able to just pick and choose the parts, and some parts would be standard and shared across all models that of it, but you would just veer off of a course to make the specific one that you wanted based upon, okay, well, I want mine to be a 6-wheel, so I need this rear frame section and this rear frame body, and I need to print 3 axles instead of 2 and 6 wheels instead of 4. Or I want the half track, I only need to print 1 axle and 2 wheels and tires, but I need to print the track kit and waste an entire day putting together the tank treads. Because these were not easy to put together. I need to get around to finishing printing this thing. I've only been hesitant because the next print is 23 hours. And I hate long prints. As you see, the treads work really well, though. As whether I'm going fast or slow, there's no binding. There's no hardware. It's 100% 3D printed. No screws, no pins, no nothing. It's all snap fit 3D printed. I love it. Love it, love it, love it. And then I get around to reprinting this so that it has the tapered in front nose, and that way it's not so fat in front. And I need to finish the trailer that sits on. So I got lots of stuff I need to do, but right, yeah, exactly. And so that would lead me to being able to do different series of bodies and upgrade parts. Like I'm color wise, I'm getting ready to do a Blue Lives Matter version of the Rep Ranger, so there will be the the blue stripe in the middle, and the flag will be black and white. And when I do that, I'm going to design a solid roof with a light bar and doors on it that will have a multi-material version to say police on the door. So that's another project that's on down the line, is the Blue Lives Matter Rep Ranger. But yeah, once I get the modular frame thing worked out, I could go back and adapt all of my vehicle designs to use the modular frame system. And then it's just body pieces, and once you design, for instance, you design one front end like this. Once that front end is designed, then you got a 2-door, you got a 4-door, you got a limousine, whatever you want. It's just a matter of printing more frame sections and more body sections. And that would let people's imaginations run wild on stuff too, because people will do that. They'll come up with other interesting ways to put it together that I haven't even thought of. Um, it's like, the happy extruder Ron, and he gets a hold of a printer, and next thing you know, it's 1,000 millimeters tall and 1,000 millimeters wide when it started off 300 by 300 by 400 or 500. What's his CR10? That's his CR10S5 started out 500 by 500 by 500, and now it's 500 by 1,000 by 1,000. And that was just because in his head he was like, well, if I had this part, this part, and this part, I could put it together this way. And the same thing I think would happen with this. Once I had the modular vehicle system out there, I would start seeing people finding ways to integrate, like, the back half from this vehicle onto the front half of this vehicle, or any number of things. Or I design a kit where you can do a 4-door. Next thing I know, I'm seeing super stretch limo versions and things like that. Just possibilities are endless. I don't know. So that's what's going through my head right now, and that's because it's been going through my head so much that has kind of jumped up into the driver's seat as I want to do this, because I think in the long run it's going to be the better way to go about everything. I've also got kind of covered in my head, you have different frame categories, like, light duty, medium duty, heavy duty, extra large, whatever, so that based upon vehicle scale, we go, okay, well, this one's a small vehicle, we print out small vehicle frame pieces. This one's a medium-sized vehicle, this one's a large vehicle, this one's an XL. So then you could have, obviously the tank, because the tank's body is wide enough without the treads on it to sit the Rep Ranger down inside. So you would call the Rep Ranger a medium, this is a large. And you have frame widths that are set up for that. Because this is just the basic frame part of the tank is wider than the entire Rep Ranger. Which this is giving me disgusting ideas I shouldn't have right now. Ideas about designing a tank body that you set the Rep Ranger down inside and close a little door. And you open the door and maybe springs eject a Rep Ranger out of the middle of the tank. Anyway. But you have different, right? You have different frame sizes, so that okay, well, so I would just start off. It's like I want to design a crawler for a space shuttle launch station. Okay, we're gonna do the XL frame. We're gonna do the tank tread kit. And then you could make that however long you wanted to, because you would have a section that was just a repeatable, snap together section, and go, okay, well, this needs to be, this long, it needs to be this long, and you just print however many sections you wanted to. Rep seal. I like it. But then just a matter of scaling, I could take and adapt things for different frame sizes. So then whenever I make a new vehicle design, I could just flat out say, okay, well, this one is based upon the medium modular frame system. And here are the medium modular frame pieces you need. So I foresee it being a way to literally just kind of end up with a catalog full of parts that go across multiple vehicles and multiple platforms. Then I get this done, and I could start working on maybe a modular system for uh, aircraft or shipbuilding, and then you could again have, okay, well, I'm gonna make my boat a little boat. I'm gonna make my boat a big boat, and you just print out however many frame pieces you need and whichever frame sector you need, and you start from there. Because I think it would streamline the process a great deal, rather than sitting down with a fresh concept in my head and creating a whole vehicle from scratch. Now I'm just going, I've got the concept in my head. This is a 6-wheeled armored personnel carrier. So I need this many large frame sections, this many large axles, this many large wheels, this many large tires. And then I sit down and design a body, slap it on the frame, call it a day. So I think that's the project I'm going to move forward with for now. Um, I get the modular frame system moving, intersecting that a little bit, and I'm going to continue with the Blue Lives Matter Rep Ranger as well, because I do want to get that done and get that printing. The hurdles I have there is a door system, an optional door system, which will change the Rep Ranger again when there's an optional door system for this. And then after that, it's just, I'll make a multi-material version that's to print, we'll say police on the side, a multi-material roof panel with a light bar. Probably all this non-functioning, of course, because I'm not that into electronics. What are you sharing a thing for there, Don? What is your thing? A microlinear actuator. Huh. So yeah, I want to get that done, and then I want to work on this modular vehicle frame system, because I think that's going to be a game changer. And it was all brought about and made possible because of the snap connectors, which I was pointed in the direction of, as they're open source. The snap connectors are, which Pooch, when he commissioned me to do the Rep Ranger, and we were talking about different ways of assembly and needing to make assembly easier. He said, "Have you tried a snap connector?" And I was like, "Well, I've tried, but I haven't gotten any that work." And he's like, "Well, these work." And so then I just had to take and remove them from his model and modify them to my own needs. Yeah, I don't have any need for any actuators or anything right now, but if I decide to sit down and start putting electronics in something, maybe. But right now, I have no desire to put any electronics in anything. I just want to design. Hey, Mike. Welcome in, man. I don't know how much longer I'm going to go with this. I was just talking about some upcoming things. Um, Modular frame system I'm working on, and the next Rep Ranger project will be a Blue Lives Matter Rep Ranger. So we'll have a Rep Ranger that looks like the Blue Lives Matter flag. My hurdle there being a door kit for the Rep Ranger, because the Rep Ranger was originally designed to just be an open-sided Jeep with no doors. But if I'm going to do a police version, I want doors so I can put the word police across the doors. And then we'll make a flat roof panel with no like T-tops or target top or anything like that. Make a flat roof panel and with a light bar. And design it for multi-material as well. Which I've got some ideas that I want to try with the design, the look of like headlight and taillight panels and light bars and stuff like that. I need to get a hold of some translucent PLA. And I'm going to, for testing purposes right now, I need such minute amounts. I need to just reach out to somebody who has a big supply of filament and say, could you send me just a little section of translucent, the transparent red, transparent orange, and clear, so I can test something. Because I don't want to order a whole roll of each and then it doesn't work out the way I'm anticipating or wanting it to work out. And then I end up with a whole roll of filament I have no use for. I just need, a tiny little amount of each color. My thought that I want to try is I want to frame the thing with black and then put a silk silver, which I already have, a silk silver layer down, and then on top of it a very thin layer of the translucent orange and red, for instance, for like the tail light. And then over the silver for like headlights to just see what it looks like to just put clear over the top of the silk silver. Because doing headlights in just silver, they don't look quite right. But I think maybe if I printed in the headlights in silk silver and then printed clear over the top of it, it would kind of give it that look. I don't know. The only way I got to print some tests and find out. That's why I said I only need a minute amount, because I'm working on cutting out just these like headlight panels and making them a snap fit thing that you would print out on like an MMU2 or on a pallet, where so it would print with black and silver, and then over the top of it orange and clear for the headlight, and then you just print that out using the like pallet 2 and then snap it in and have cooler, more realistic looking headlights. But I didn't see a point in, because like I said, I need transparent red, transparent orange, and clear. I didn't see a point in spending $60 on 3 rolls of filament for a test. A test of a piece this big. So I'm like, no, I don't want to spend $60 to test one little headlight panel and see what it looks like. One little tail light panel, see what it looks like. So I just need to reach out to somebody who I know has a lot of filament laying around, maybe Chris Riley, and see if he's got. Send me just a couple turns off the spool. Because if the test works, I'll order, a roll of each of those filaments, and maybe I can reach out to a filament manufacturer and say, could you just send me a sample of your transparent red, transparent orange, and clear? Don't need a whole roll, just a sample. And then if it works out, I'll be ordering a roll of each. Oh. Because I think if I frame the headlight, looking at modern headlights, if I frame the headlight and do the like main design with the black, and then lay down the first background layer of silk silver. Hey, Robbie Mac. And then on top of the silk silver, I do like clear and transparent orange, for instance. I think the silk silver would still reflect through if I did a thin enough layer of the clear and the transparent orange, that it would still reflect through and give it some depth and some pop and look more realistic. Yes, Robbie Mac, how was Gen Con? And for me, what is Gen Con? I don't know what that is. Ah. Wow. That is a big gaming convention. RPGs, board games, card games. Cool. Oh. Yeah, I've never been to any of those type of conventions. The only conventions I've used to dealing with was the fair board conventions with like Missouri Association of Fairs and Festivals and the Kansas State Fairs and Festivals Commission or whatever convention. It was that all those things back when I was looking to get my band booked at fairs and festivals, you have to go and showcase at those things if you want to get booked. And all of them have, membership dues that you have to pay, and you go and you play for them, and you have to pay for a booth and things like that, and you go and you play for free, but then the turnaround is you could book 13 or 14 fairs at, $4,000 or $5,000 a piece. Lots of laser cut stuff, huh? Oh, there you have it, folks. Robbie Mack said it. 3D printing's dead. Everybody, Robbie Mack said 3D printing's dead. We should all just pack up and go home. Sell all your 3D printers and buy laser cutters. What did you miss? You missed that Robbie Mack said 3D printing's dead. No, I'm just kidding. For me, you didn't really miss much. I'm still sitting here brainstorming in my head over this modular frame and how it's all going to work. But Robbie Mack, back to your first, what colors you looking for, Cup? I'm looking for transparent orange, transparent red, and clear. Just a small sample of each. Because I just want to test something, but I don't want to spend $60 on a whole roll of filament and then the test doesn't work on 3 whole rolls of filament. And then the test doesn't work and I'm stuck with transparent orange, transparent red, and clear that I'm never going to use. The more transparent, the better. Oh, see, that doesn't help me either. It needs to be something that I can still acquire. Because if the test works out, I'm going to order a whole roll of each. Because what I want to do is design a snap-in headlight and taillight panels for my vehicles, like the Rep Ranger. And I want to print it so the frame's in black, the background is in silk silver, which I have. And then, like for the headlights, you print transparent orange and transparent and clear over the headlight and turn signal. And then in the back, you go a black frame, silk silver inset, and then cover it with transparent red. And keep the layers really, really thin on the transparent colors that go over the top of the silk silver. Because I understand it'll dull the silver. It will, but if I leave it a thin enough layer that it's still very, very see-through, it should add that realistic depth. You know what I'm saying? Okay, I may reach out to them and say, I would just like a sample of clear, transparent red, and transparent orange. Because, again, the key, I think, is going to be to put the silk silver background behind it. Well, if I got to fill out the form, I'll fill out the form 3 times. If each time you fill out the form only gets you one color, I'll fill out the form 3 times under 3 different email addresses. I've only got I think at last count 19 email addresses. Being a webmaster for a while has I've racked up lots and lots of email addresses. Well, because if the test works, I will order a full roll of each. It's a 100% guarantee that if the thing that I have in mind works, I will order a roll of each. But I don't want to order a roll of each of colors that, if the test doesn't work, I will never use. I have no use for whatsoever. Yeah, because I think if I use the multi-material, I use the palette too, and I put the silk silver background behind it, it'll give it that shimmer, that sheen that the silk silver has. Because the silk silver, it almost looks like chrome. So if you have a chrome-looking filament behind a transparent red and a transparent orange and a transparent clear, I think it'll give it that shine and that depth to make it look more realistic. And the test that I plan on doing, more of it'll end up getting used in the purge tower than in the actual part. But I want to print and test one headlight and one taillight panel and one set. And then if there's enough left, do a light bar test that I have in mind as well for the Blue Lives Matter Rep Ranger. Because I also have a theory that if I print something in clear and put something inside of it, if I print something in clear with another color or whatever inside of it, if I print it with a little bit of extra that I can sand down, go like 400 grit to 800 grit to then wet sand like 1500, 2000, and then shoot some clear coat over the top of it, that it would be really transparent. That's the idea. I'd like to try it. Yeah, because what I have planned is going to be on the palette too. It will use more plastic in the purge tower than it will in the actual part. Way, way more. But then if the test works out, I'll order a roll of each, and then I can print like dozens of headlight panels at the same time and dozens of taillight panels at the same time. So you'd still only have one purge tower, even though you have multiple parts. Yeah, don't tempt me. I've been this close. The other day, Amazon sent me an email that I could buy a photon for $270 on Amazon with next day shipping. Like, order it and have it tomorrow for $270. Which was tempting, but at the same time, then I'm like, but then I would have to do, I guess I could do a multi-material colored backing area and then a clear lens to snap over the top of that. Yeah, I almost grabbed the wife's credit card and because she left it at home. I almost ordered one. I was this close to grabbing the credit card and going, it'll be easier to ask forgiveness than permission. But then I was reminded that, do I really need it? No, I don't really need it. What I need more is another workhorse like the S4, because I can't trust any of the other three over here to be workhorses like that. And I'd want it to be direct drive. So what I really need to do is sell these three printers and get myself a Sidewinder, because it's direct drive and built like a tank. And then I'd have the 400 by 400 by 400 over here, and then I'd have a 300 by 300 by 400 that's also direct drive and solid as a rock, that I could trust to just do its job. Because the A8, the Tornado, and the X1, well, the X1's tiny, and most of the stuff I print is not tiny. And then the A8 and the Tornado, I can't trust them. I have to sit and watch them like a hawk. And I'm never home. Now, like, I'll be home more in the wintertime, so I can print with them in the wintertime. But unless I'm going to be here to sit and watch them, I just can't use them. So I'm at the point where I'm like, send them on down the road, get 250, 300 bucks for the three of them probably. Maybe if I'm lucky, 400 for the three of them, and then whatever money's necessary to make up the difference, make up the difference and order a Sidewinder. I've watched everybody's videos on the Sidewinder, and the only thing that's pretty much universally crap that comes back in the reviews is the spool holder and the filament sensor. So, other than that, it gets phenomenal reviews from everybody that reviews it. The only thing that pretty much comes back as crap is their dumb spool holder and their sometimes inaccurate filament sensor. So you just cut off a little piece of filament, stick it in the filament sensor, and call it a day. And put a different spool holder on top. Like the Ender 2's spool holder, which resides on top of my Tornado. Because, yeah, I'm so, like, beyond done with Bowden machines. In the Tornado, I'm done fighting with it, because it's dimensional accuracy is all off, even after tuning it and tuning it and tuning it and tuning it. Its dimensional accuracy is off to the point where I can't print a part on the Tornado and then print a part on the S4 and have them snap together, because they won't line up. The part looks okay, but it's ever so slightly off. And I can take calipers to it, and it measures ever so slightly off. But when I'm trying to do stuff that's as precise as like these snap connectors, they can't be a millimeter off from each other. So I need, if I'm going to use more than one machine, they need to be dimensionally accurate and dimensionally accurate to each other. And the S4 is perfect. And the Tornado I've adjusted and adjusted and adjusted, and it's just never perfect, so I'm tired of it. That, and it has extrusion issues all the time with the I don't know if there's something wrong with the extruder on it or what. I don't know. So the direct drive on the S4, the Bondtech direct drive kit that I put on the S4 is night and day different. Night and day. An increase in print speed, an increase in print quality. And the print speed I'm picking up, because I'm printing at the same like millimeters per second and all that, but it's essentially no retraction anymore. So over the course of a long print, you don't have any of that time for being wasted on retraction. Like my travel speeds and my millimeters per second and all that are all still the same as they were when it was a Bowden setup. But I guess just not having all that retraction time now adds up over the course of a long print. Well, and look up Greg 3D CR Tank. I think that's what he calls it. His direct drive, because that's what the Bondtech direct drive is. It's just a commercialized version of Greg 3D's direct drive. And so you can DIY it for about $100 cheaper. Yeah, and for $100 cheaper, you could DIY it with actual Bondtech. If you got a Bondtech clone, you probably save even more. Because on the front of the direct drive, it even says Greg 3D on Bondtech's direct drive, because they attribute him. And see, there you go. There's a good company doing what it's supposed to. They attribute the person who designed it. It says with Greg 3D. I believe that's what it says. Yeah, it says with Greg 3D right on the front of the hot end. On the cooling fan shroud. So they attribute him properly. I don't know if he gets any kind of kickback off of their sales of it, but he definitely gets attributed. If he doesn't get a kickback on it, he should, because, again, he designed it. They designed the extruder, but he designed the direct drive kit. And they just took, and all the parts are SLS printed, which is really cool, by the way. All the parts on the Bondtech direct drive, all the printed parts are SLS printed. And if you've never seen and held and looked at an SLS printed part, it's way different and very cool. I'm wondering when we are going to see the race to the bottom effect kick in for SLS. We saw it for FDM a couple years ago with the CR10. Really started it. And now we are currently seeing the race to the bottom in resin printing with Elegoo and Orange with their and Monoprice with their $200 to $250 range SLA machines. So I keep waiting and wondering when the race to the bottom will bring us an SLS machine for $1,500, because I think for SLS that's the race to the bottom. I think that's the bottom that it could possibly be done for. It just can't be done cheap. But right now, SLS machines, the cheapest one on the market's what, $6,000? The I think the Centret Lisa is $6,000. So that's the cheapest one on the market. Well, why hasn't anybody jumped on this yet and come up with a cheaper alternative than that? There's got to be a way. Because it can't be just that prohibitively expensive. I know it's using a laser. I know, I get it. SLS is using laser, but and then the nylon powder and all that. But just seeing some of the things that SLS is capable of that no other style of printing is capable of, like printing functional parts fully assembled with no supports. Like, you could literally take, and if your print volume was big enough, you could literally take and print this in its entirety with rolling wheels and everything as a single print. With SLS. Single print, no assembly required. Now, granted, it's all going to be one color nylon powder, but you would take it out, shake off and brush off all the excess powder, and you have a fully assembled, ready to play with toy, straight out of the printer. So then, if from a production standpoint, if you were producing toys for something, you get yourself an airbrush and and design yourself some paint masks for it, and you just mask it up, shoot it, send it out. So then you have color on it without, And then with SLS, you don't have things like, the post processing you have with SLA, which is the drawback to SLA. That's the major drawback to SLA printing, is the post processing. The odor, the health risks, the post processing. SLS, I understand, comes with its own health risks because you have nylon dust everywhere. You don't want to breathe that. And it's a mess because there's dust everywhere. But it still intrigues me. But it doesn't intrigue me enough to even attempt to try to scrape together $6,000 for a Centret Lisa, which I think is the cheapest SLS on the market. Let's go see. What's the cheapest SLS printer on the market? Oh no, the Lisa is $89.90. The 6,000 I was thinking of is it's price in euros or whatever. So yeah, 9 grand. As far as I know, it's the cheapest one. Because the only other one that I know of that's a home SLS machine is the Formlabs one, and it's not even out yet and is 10 plus grand. Oh, see, there's another cheap resin printer. GearBest has an AlphaWise W10 for $279. I wonder what the difference between the Photon and the Photon S is. There's now a Photon S, and it's more expensive. Maybe that's why the Photon was so cheap the other day. None of those are SLS machines. Oh, and then the Centret Lisa Pro is 16 grand. And then if you want the things to do all the cleaning up and the powder recovery and stuff, 20 grand. Yeah, Robbie, no. Oh, look, affordable industrial 3D prints for 50 grand. And that's FDM, but that's Peak and PEI. Stronger LCD for less exposure time, but plastic housing. Wow, okay. You're probably on some sort of Facebook group or something now, aren't you? Yeah, it would have to be like Joel's Traveling G Max. But do you know how messy that would be? And I believe SLS machines are fairly sensitive. Because if you get the laser out of whack, it's not printing anything. I didn't even see the Formlabs printer anymore. Have they scrapped it? Because it never did. It never, as far as I know, it never had seen a light of day. Yeah, they're still taking reservations on it. They've been taking reservations on the Fuse 1 for years, it seems. Let's see. There's the Fuse 1. Yeah, they're still reserved now. But that's the cool thing about SLS is there's no supports. It just because your whole build area there is filled up with powder, and the powder supports itself. So you would just cram as much crap as you could in the build platform, in the build area, run the printer, and then the messy process of removing all the powder. Nylon suitable for high temp applications. That's all pretty cool. And showing that you can get multiple build trays so that you're ready to go back to printing. You just put the one that's done, set it down for processing, and go stick a new one in. Yeah, and see there, you can print with up to 50% of your recycled powder. So you still, 50% of it has to be new powder every time. And then in order to print with the 50%, I read this at one point, in order to print with the 50% used powder, you have to buy their other machine that mixes the used powder with new powder for you. I don't know. Yeah, $1,000 deposit. Expected to begin shipping in 2019. They've been saying that for like a year, though. It seems to be the slowest moving. Hey, John. It seems to be the slowest moving 3D printing project I've ever seen from a reputable company. Anyway, we got to talking about SLS because the direct drive, the Bondtech direct drive that I got, its 3D printed parts are SLS printed. And they're cool. It's so neat. And then we started musing over when will we see, and maybe you can weigh in on this, John, when do you think we'll see the race to the bottom for SLS printing? We've already experienced it in FDM printing. We're in the middle of it now with SLA printing. How long before we see a race to the bottom in SLS printing? Because $9,000 right now is the cheapest home grade SLS printer. With the center at Lisa. And then really you need to spend $14,000 on their whole setup to reclaim your powder and things like that, so you're not wasting all of your materials. So in a nutshell, 14 grand is the baseline for getting into SLS printing at home, which is beyond the scope and reach of 99.9% of people out there. When you think we'll see a race to the bottom, where say an SLS machine comes in at say $2 grand for everything you need. Because see, I think if they could reach that price point, you'd have people buying them. Or even $3 grand. You could see people, hitting up a credit card or scraping together $3 grand for an SLS machine. But I don't see too many people scraping together 14 grand to have an SLS printer. Along with all the mess and drawbacks that they have, which is, substantial. Because you almost would need to put it in a... You would almost have to do it in the garage. Hey, Chris Riley. What we were musing over is, when will we see the race to the bottom for SLS printing? We've seen it in FDM, started by the ANET A8 and CR10. We saw the race to the bottom in FDM printing. We're currently experiencing the race to the bottom in SLA printing with the orange SLA printer and the Elegoo Mars and AlphaWise has a $270 one. We're currently experiencing the race to the bottom in SLA printing. When will we see the race to the bottom in SLS printing? Because right now, the Center at Lisa is the cheapest SLS printer that I could find, and it's $8,990. and then you need to spend another $5,000 on the thing to recover and mix your recycled powder and things like that, so you're not wasting all of your materials. So your baseline right now to get into SLS printing is $14,000. That's beyond the scope and reach of just about everybody. When do we see a race to the bottom? That, like I said, I think the goal would have to be somewhere around $3,000. If you could get a machine that SLS printed and had another machine that or unit with it that recycled your powder, if you could get into that somewhere in the neighborhood of $3,000, I think you would see people give it a whirl. Yeah, there's the inhalation thing, but I mean, again, there are there's multiple printers available. I know the Centra Elisa is probably the best known one, and Formlabs is coming out with their Fuse 1. Yes, you absolutely have to wear a mask because you don't want to inhale nylon powder in the air, and you almost have to do the printing in like your garage. But there are all sorts of risk factors involved in SLA printing that probably way too many people are ignoring. The toxicity of resin, the long-term effects of breathing the fumes. But we've also, we don't always all 100% understand the fumes that we're breathing with FDM printing either. As was pointed out, there are FDM printable materials that release formaldehyde in the air and can kill you. So with all 3D printing, there are risks. Right. With all 3D printing, there are risks, and to some point we mitigate the FDM risks because, well, you would almost have to have your face hovering right over the build plate to really see any toxic levels of anything from what comes off of most materials. Like PLA is essentially safe. ABS not so much. Which one is it that releases the formaldehyde gases and can kill you? I saw a video on it, and it's probably been over a year ago. And the risks of it, and I think it was Tom Sandlatter. It was like, no one should pretty much ever print with this material. Yeah, no one should print with Weed Eater line either. AD. But yeah, there are risks involved, health risks involved with every form of 3D printing. Some greater than others. But all of them, through proper training and techniques, can be mitigated entirely. So, it still begs the question, when will we see the race to the bottom in SLS printing, and what will the race to the bottom be? Because, from which company is it that held the patent forever on SLS printing, and now that it's expired, it really hasn't cut into their business too much because the Fuse 1 and it isn't out yet, and the Centra Elisa is not really in the same league as their machines. Is it 3D Systems? You know, so we haven't seen, as far as they're considered, they think they've already seen the race to the bottom in the Center at Lisa being $9,000, and I think $10,000 is what the Fuse 1 is planned to be. That's why they're never supposed to find out, D. That's why they're never supposed to know. Use use cash to buy prepaid cards to order stuff online, so you don't have a paper trail. Anyway, use cash to buy Amazon gift cards. But as far as whatever company it is that has the $50,000, $60,000 machines, they think they've already seen the race to the bottom in SLS, because there's now $10,000 SLS machines. But we as consumers know that FDM machines were $30,000, $40,000 just a few years ago. Now you can buy a good one for $200, a decent one for $200 in like the Ender 3. SLA machines, the first real mainstream consumer SLA machine was the Formlabs machine, and it was what, $3,000. Now we've got reasonable quality SLA machines ranging from $200 to $400. There you go. Tiny house kits for printers, sintering shacks. Right. Yeah. I mean, you almost have to have a separate environment for SLS printing. That's what I said, garage, because you're going to have dust that's going to have to be swept up, vacuumed up, dealt with. It's not something you want to do in your house, and for the love of God, don't do it if you have carpet in the house. Impregnating all of your carpet with nylon powder. Uh, but it has to have a dedicated space. But my question is when will we see that race to the bottom for SLS, and what is that bottom? Is that bottom? Have we already seen that bottom? Is $9,000 with the Center at Lisa? Is that already the bottom, or can somebody beat it and one of these Chinese manufacturers come up with an SLS machine that they can sell with the stuff to reclaim your powder and all that for $3,000? And that's why I said I think $3,000 is the magic number, because people would grab a credit card for $3,000. And of course, then they'd really kick themselves when they found out they needed to spend another couple grand setting up a space to put it. And personal safety equipment, respirators and hazmat suits and things. Well, yeah, I mean, us married guys, we couldn't do that. We couldn't just grab the credit card and drop $3,000. But the single guys out there, and then the more well-to-do guys out there, they could drop $3,000 and make it happen. But most of them aren't willing to drop $10,000. So that's just something to ponder. I don't know. Maybe it's we haven't seen it because it can't be done. Maybe. It Are there any of those filament recyclers that actually work? I mean, without needing to be a freaking engineer. Like the thing that Joel Telling had and did videos on, that was he wanted so bad for it to be good. He wanted so bad for it to work, and it just didn't. Fuel stuff. That's funny. Right. Yeah. I mean, and I don't think, and the problem is, I don't think there's enough market out there for a company to be that interested in finding a way to do it effectively and cheaper. Because most people are just going to continue to, unless they have a recycling program in their area, throw away their failed prints. I don't print often enough to have very many failed prints, so I just throw mine away because I don't have very many. I don't have very many because, well, I also have a really awesome printer that does a really good job. Most failures I have most of the failures I've had since I've gotten this printer are just iterating parts. Right. I mean, the cost effectiveness is not there. The desire would be there to be better on the environment. It would be, but I find it interesting that PLA is marketed as biodegradable. How biodegradable? How many years does it take for PLA to break down in a landfill? Are we talking about, well, it's biodegradable? It only takes 100 years for that to go break down in the landfill. To me, that's not biodegradable. That's 100 years. I guess if somebody out there has a compost pile, it would be interesting to print and put a PLA part at the bottom of your compost pile, and to dig it out of there every, like, once a month, and capture how far it's broken down sitting at the bottom of a compost heap, and just see how much it's degraded over that course of time. Oh, so you compost D? Yeah, I was like, it's gonna have to be somebody who already composts. No one's going to start a compost heap just to test a 3D printed part. But 3D print yourself a part that you can easily recover and find. Plant it in your compost heap, and dig it back out of there once a month, and just take pictures and document um, how much it's broken down over that course of time. And we'll see how many years it takes for it to break down to a point that you could consider it broken down. It would be an interesting experiment anyway. Acrylic viewing windows and time lapse. Wow, that would be a heck of a thing to set up. I would just be curious because PLA is marketed as being biodegradable, but if it takes 30 years for it to break down, that's not biodegradable. It took 30 years. I mean, it's a good chunk of a person's life before it returned to the environment. Now, if you're talking about 2 years of being in a landfill or compost situation, and it's broken down, okay, that's acceptable. Right. Well, that's what I'm saying. The test would almost have to be a basic PLA, a real true PLA, not a high temp PLA, not a because like protopasta is a high temp PLA. Being a high temp PLA, it would take longer to break down. Um, I would say Amazon Basics would take longer to break down because I have to crank my heat up to print with Amazon Basics. So if it takes higher heat to print it, it probably also takes higher pressures and heats to break it down. That's bad for the air, Ryan. You can't do that. It's bad for the air to just burn it. Although probably no worse for the air than so many other things we got going on in this world. But all the people saying we're killing the planet's going to be just fine. Like George Carlin said, the people are beep. The planet will shake us off like a bad case of fleas. To quote George Carlin. Sure, we'll make it uninhabitable for ourselves, but the planet itself will still be around. The planet will be around until the sun dies, and when the sun starts to die and it expands and grows to 10,000 times its normal size and engulfs the Earth, then the Earth will be gone. 3 to 6 months. Okay. See, 3 to 6 months is a reasonable time to me. Like I said, even 2 years I would consider to be a reasonable time for a plastic to biodegrade fully. So if you shoot like a short little video clip with it every time you dig it out of there and examine it, you could have yourself one heck of a video to put on YouTube that would get a lot of attention. So you can say at the end of that, you can go, this is 6 months in the compost heap, and as you can see, it's fully broken down, soft. If that's the case, then that's great. Mr. Buttram says he'll biodegrade before the plastic does. I think it would. I think it would make for a great test and a great YouTube video. And like I said, but it had to be somebody who composts already. So I'm glad I brought it up in here today, and that you compost. So because I'm not going to go start a compost heap to do the test. Yeah, we're just slowly creating a planet that will only be inhabitable by, like bugs and bacteria. That's what we're doing. The only things that will be able to survive the harsh environment left behind after our idiocy. Right, exactly. Yeah, that's. But the same thing is happening, Ryan, in your landfills. There's immense amounts of heat generated in landfills, and heat and gas as things break down. Methane gas is produced in landfills. That's why they can actually farm methane gas off of landfills. So yeah, D. I think we could be onto something here. When you get to the point where you feel that the first material is fully biodegraded, that's when I would release the video and go, okay, here we are, and here's all the materials, and here's the state that they're in by the end of it, and edit it all together, and then you could do update videos and update it every so often on the other materials. And if anybody's ever seen one of those methane gas pockets catch fire on a landfill, I used to work across the street from a landfill, and uh, one morning it looked like somebody shooting a flamethrower straight up in the air. And one of the people that I work with, because I was like, what in the heck's going on over there? And they're like, something ignited a gas pocket in the landfill. Looked like a flamethrower shooting in the air. It was crazy. And they're probably something as simple and stupid as somebody throwing away a battery you're not supposed to throw away. And the battery, as it broke down and degraded in the landfill, still had enough of a charge to cause a spark. Anyway, guys, I got some stuff to do. Last day of freedom before the boy goes back to school. I want to thank you all for hanging out today. Well, we're wrapping things up here anyway, Ryan. You have a good day, man. So yeah, thanks everybody for hanging out. Glad to be back and streaming. Expect me to continue to do so on Tuesdays on the regular. Um, I look forward to moving forward this modular frame system for vehicles, and the Blue Lives Matter version of the Rep Ranger is going to be the next probably finished project, and we'll see y'all later and catch you in the next one.